I know, it's crazy. Episode 20 already.
Felt like we started yesterday.
Yeah, that's the and like you said last episode. That's the end of season one. I guess we'll call it right.
Yeah, I think
20
so. Because
episodes a season.
now that we're on Spotify, they have it set up nicely to do it in seasons. So I feel like 20. Yeah, it's a nice area to wrap up. Like 20 episodes is a good season length.
Yeah, and for anyone out there, again, we have Instagram pages at Dan at the Boys Podcast, I think it is, and
Yeah.
the Boys Podcast for myself, and we're always putting out, music, sports, some funny clips that we're able to edit. So always check that out. Always like, share, and subscribe to the videos. We talk about a lot of nostalgic stuff, a lot of real life stuff. So it's a fun listen for anybody.
Yeah. You can get your fix on anything pop culture. Like you said, we cover a lot of topics. So yeah, if you like what you hear in the podcast, check out our social media and vice versa.
Absolutely. So, Dan, explain to everyone what we're talking about today. We're stepping away from music, we're stepping away from movies, we're stepping away from video games, and we're talking about real life.
Yeah, so we've done an episode or two like this in the past. We call them our kind of our open book episodes, and it's more less about our interests and more about us actually as people in our lives. And kind of fitting that you're on your way home from work because we wanted to kind of talk about our work lives and our work life balance today.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, so I was on 13, 14-hour shifts this week. So, usually, if you guys follow the podcast, recently I just usually stay at work after and film it, but it's a Friday, so I only get to see the kids for about an hour in the morning throughout the week. So it's always nice to get home earlier on the Friday, right? So we usually have a movie night, so that's why I'm actually driving my vehicle home today instead of sitting in the office or the lunchroom. So, Dan, I know you got a new job. How are you right now dealing with work-life balance? Obviously, you got a big day coming up. You
Yeah.
have your wedding coming up. All
Yeah.
this stuff coming at one point. How are you dealing with everything now? How has your schedule changed from what you previously had it at your previous job when everything was kind of a fixed schedule?
Yeah, I mean, well, things are good right now because I've just started my vacation before the wedding. So things are really good now. All I have to
Yeah,
focus on is the wedding. But yeah, it was getting a little hectic between the wedding and work. And as you said, I started a new job. I recently changed industries completely. I'm now working within the trades. Um, and yeah, previously, God, I mean, the reason that initiated my change in work was really about work life balance. Like my old job, I was working all afternoons and into the late night and very opposite shifts from my fiance. And that was not the way I wanted to start my marriage. So I thought, what better time to make a change than now?
absolutely. Well, before we start with that, run us back to your first job. Like, obviously, with work life balance, we're going to talk about a lot of stress we've done. We've been to a lot of places. We've worked a lot of places. We've worked with a lot of great people, a lot of not so great people. So,
Yeah.
tell me about your first gig and, what you learned and what you hated about it.
My first job, it's tough. I feel like you said, I like you asked me if what I learned, what I hated about it, and I guess it is kind of a mixed. It is a mixed basket when it comes to most jobs. Really, I've had in the past, but my first job, uh, I didn't work all through high school, right up until I turned 18, and my dad got me a student job while I was starting college. At his work, is manufacturing on an assembly line and I think it being my first job, it was quite like a shock. I never really dipped my feet into the working life with like a fast food job or Tim Hortons, like most young people do. I kind of dove right into manufacturing. It was a little intimidating at first, but I think it also taught me a good lesson about hard work and stuff, and kind of put me better in a direction of like more what I didn't want to do. for the rest of my career. Not saying there's nothing wrong with working in manufacturing. My father made a good career and raised a family on it. But it was, my first few jobs are really the realization of more of what I don't like rather than what I do like when it comes to work. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, well, my first job, well, what had happened was I had gotten my driver's. Look at this fucking guy. He's run across the road. But my first job, I got my license, and my dad had me on his insurance. So he would pay my insurance, but obviously he would give me a little bit of gas money every week.
Right.
So I needed gas money, and I know every time we would go out, like everyone would be, hey, you want to go to Walmart or whatever, whatever. And was the one with the license. I'd be, oh, gas money, right? And
Yeah.
that's how I'd fill up the tank, right? It would be you guys would give some gas money, or one of you guys would offer to buy the meal or something for me. So that's pretty much what made me get a job. I was sitting at home one day, and I was like, man, I got to get a fucking job. So I remember making up the saddest resume ever because I had no work
No
experience,
work
so it
experience.
fucking was really nothing. It was basically just a cover letter, right? Just saying like, hey, I'm looking for employment. I'm ready to work hard, whatever, whatever. And I sent it out to a bunch of places, and I got lucky that a lady down the street, I was friends with her son, but I didn't know she worked there. She worked at a local Goodwill. And she saw it. I dropped it off. She's like, "Oh, I'll give it to the managers for sure." She put in the word, and I got the job, right? So that was my first job, and that I'm not gonna lie, I've worked at a few other places, but that was the hardest job I've ever had. I know everyone's gonna be like, "What? How is that possible?" You know, that you worked at a Goodwill and you're just sorting through clothes. It's not that. I'm gonna break down Goodwill, and this is in Canada wise. I don't know how it is in the States, but in Canada, everything is money based, and it's profit, profit, profit. Basically, a lot of people think when you donate to Goodwill, a lot of the workers are volunteer, and or it's going to a good cause, but it's not. It's all free stuff we're getting, and we're all marking it up at a high price. And what I mean by that is, head office would come down, monthly, and we had quotas we had to hit. So each store had to make, 100 grand a month, 75,000 a month or whatever, right? And
Right.
they would come with a sheet of paper, and you had quotas. And every hour you have to put out so much production. So if you were putting out clothing, you would have to hang 151 clothes an hour and put them out there, rack them, and keep going back and forth. Or if you were going through all the shoes, electronics, and they had price guides. So for clothing, around the mall, and they seen all the name brands. So usually what we used to do, any pair of jeans was $6 when I first worked there. So that's not bad, $6 for a pair
Yeah.
of jeans. But then they came back, and now if it's name brand, we want to double it. So if it's a name brand from the mall, it's going to be 12 to $16, and if it's a really good brand, it's going to be 21 or higher
Damn.
for jeans and clothing,
Crazy.
right?
Yeah.
But it's all based on quota. But there was this position there that I worked because I was the only guy there. I was the only guy at the Goodwill I worked at. I worked with a lot of older women that couldn't lift anything heavy, so I always had to work in the back, and it was called the door. And in the summertime, you'd be getting all the garage sale donations, and it would be about 50 cars an hour just dumping truckloads, but I would have to follow a quota and stack 4 bins high of so many categories in an hour, and it was the most stressful, hardest job I've ever done. I've worked in manufacturing, I've worked construction, and it was the hardest by far none. And anyone that's worked at Goodwill understands what I'm saying when it's true though. They know what I'm saying, but everything was quota based, and it was rough, man. And I feel bad for the employees because after I left, like 3 months later, the head office just came, put a notice on the door. The facility is closed. Took all the
Right.
money and left. Didn't pay nobody nothing. They took all the money and left. But yeah, deep down, Goodwill's not. it's a great place to shop for your deals, but it's not a good about it. It's just profit, profit.
Right.
Give your goods to a place that's doubling it to make the owners of the company millions of dollars, right? And they don't give it to the homeless, nothing like that. Everything gets recycled. So say the clothing that we went through, and it got bad that the clothing had to be pristine. We had a list of if the clothing had a little bit of a fray here, it was garbage. Like you had to put
Right.
up pristine items, and again, you had those pricing points, and they always making money. So they would take the salvageable clothing and then they would take it to head office, send it out, cut it up, and then sell it to companies that would buy them for rags for shops,
Right.
mechanic
That makes
shops,
sense.
warehouses. So they're always making money and
Yeah. There's always
paying you dirt. Like when I got my job, that was when my dad was like, "Hey, you're gonna have to start paying rent and so forth and so on." And I was lucky to break $600 every other week. Like it was some
yeah.
dirt money. Um,
How many
and
hours were you
again,
working back then?
I would get no less than 25 hours a week, but usually I'd be at that 38 to 40.
Right. Right.
But at the time, I had my ex, but she didn't work for the relationship duration that we were together. So when we went out with all the guys, it would be double breakfasts, double lunches, all this payments. I racked up a bunch of credit card debt. And like when you guys were going out, I couldn't even go out sometimes because I just didn't have the money in my bank account. I was paying rent, I had a phone bill, insurance, and I was only making, if I was lucky, again, like $600 every other
Right.
week, and I was paying for two people for living off of that. So it was time for a change. And I remember I was there for a couple of years, and the manager, she knew how I was, and she knew if she lit a fire under my ass, I would do something with my life. So she came up to me one day and she's like, "Chris, you're never gonna leave this place. You're gonna be like all these old people here, just working their lives at a little sweatshop." And I was like, "Really?" And she's like, "Yeah." And 2 weeks later, I was out and I had my other gig that I had for 8 years, right? So
He
she
challenged
knew
you.
how to she knew how to get me out of there. She knew I needed to do something else. But regardless of how shitty the place was, the people I worked with were amazing.
Right.
Um, it's something to say to be the only guy working with a bunch of females. So like it was neat for sure, and the customers all loved me. At nighttime, they would always put me on cash, and the one supervisor she was a dick to everybody, but she would always be like, "Chris, I bought pizza. Come have a slice." She was just so nice, and everyone would be like, "Yo, Chris, why are you getting pizza? Why is she like you and hate everyone else?" I'm like, "I don't know," but the secret was I wasn't charging people those ridiculous prices when I was on cash. Like, if you came up with a pair of fucking $20 jeans, I was like, yeah, you can have them for $10. Like, it's like, I'm
Yeah, I
at,
felt bad charging them that much.
yeah. And another secret of Goodwill, I'm breaking all these people's secrets.
They don't even
The
exist in
rich,
Canada anymore, anyways. So
no, but the rich only shop at Goodwill. And I know this for a fucking fact because I've seen so many rich women of high class come in there, find all the name brand stuff. They're paying 75% off basically from what you get in the store, wash it
yeah,
and put it on their daughter's bed. And hey, I went to Guess, I went here, I went there, and now
right,
they got all
right.
this clothing that they think is brand new, but from Goodwill. Funny story about that. There was a lady that came in a Viper, and her husband
Ouch.
circled around Goodwill 3 times, and then parked at the very back of the parking lot. And then she walked out from the back of the parking lot, came into the store, and he took off. And then she bought all the name brand clothes, all the purses, whatever, and then called him back. He parked all the way across the street, and she went in the car because she didn't want people to
He's
notice
too
that
embarrassed.
she was
Yeah,
well off
she's rich.
shopping at Goodwill, right? So always the people that came in, I knew, they really needed to shop there. I always gave them good deals. So They were always like, Chris, how you keep upselling? They must just like me, but it was because I was giving the good deals, right? So,
Could pay for the gym, sir.
but yeah, like I said, that was probably the hardest job I've ever had. And then my my second job, I applied at this manufacturing place. It was like a secure location, and I was like, "There's no way I'm gonna get this job. Like I got retail experience." And then I went into the interview, and I've always seemed to do good in interviews. And I always make them laugh, and I tell them what they want to hear. For all you guys out there, when you're going to a construction, manufacturing, warehouse, a lot of those places, the supervisors want to hear you say safety. Safety is always first. They want to know if you know
Yeah.
your SOPs. Do you follow all of them? So make sure you keep that in mind when you're doing the job. Safety is always your top priority. Everyone wants to go to work in one piece and come back in one piece. So I ended up getting the gig, and at first I thought I was making garage doors because it was a door company, and they're like,
Right.
yeah, you're gonna be working in the curtain area. So when I left, I'm like, curtains? Where do they put curtains on doors? I was like trying to think, right? But I'm like whatever, and it ended up being rubber doors, like industrial rubber doors we were making, and the spot they had me in was a very physical job. I was on my hands and knees, 8 to 10 hours a day, fully with a respirator on, using chemicals, grinding, and it really was slave labor, but it kept me in shape. And I met some of the greatest people that you ever meet. I've worked with some of the laziest motherfuckers I've ever seen in a workplace. But tell me, Dan, tell me about some of the employees, coworkers that you met, some of the good and some of the bad, because I know we both work with, both of them. And the one thing I understand, because I look at both sides of everything, is your hardest work. I find your companies always push out the hardest workers because you let the lazy fucks be lazy fucks. And I don't understand it. I get it. It's like, oh, I know Chris is going to do it. I know Dan will do it, so I'll go bug him, bug him. But it's like, maybe if you bugged the lazy fuck, he would fucking go and do it.
Yeah.
But obviously he's going to do a half-assed job because he's a lazy son of a bitch. But, like, it's like, how is this guy still employed? Get him out of here and give me his pay. Like, split up the pay with
That's
other
how
guys that are
places.
working hard.
That's how places run off their good employees too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So tell me about some of the guys that you worked with. You don't have to name names, but some of the good, some of the
Yeah.
bad. And tell me about leaving the automotive factory that you worked at and going to your next job.
Yeah. So, well, when we're talking about coworkers, I mean, on the good side, I mean, I met my fiance and future wife at a job just after I left my first automotive manufacturing job. I worked for a short period of time in furniture retail. I worked in the warehouse, and she was a secretary. In that job, I made so many good friends at it. It was just a part-time gig. I was in my early 20s. Maybe the happiest in a way I've ever been at a job, but just wasn't a really sustainable occupation. It was never going to pay my bills in any way. But
Yeah.
I feel that I met all of like my favorite coworkers at this job specifically. Every job has its share of good people and stuff, and a lot of the time, I don't. It's not even necessarily the people I get along with best are necessarily even the best workers around me. Because some places, like you said, like some places, almost some of the hard workers enable for poor management and stuff like that at jobs I've had. So like some of the guys I've leveled with are more guys that are just like, I'm gonna do my thing and I'm not gonna worry about everybody else. Like that's the personalities that I always attach myself to at work. People that are just concerned about their own jobs and what they're doing. They're not looking to take on work from other people, and they're not worried about what everybody else is doing around them. That's the people and the people that are able to come to work and really just kind of do their job and disconnect. Like you can tell that they're able to just compartmentalize all the stresses at their work, and they're not taking it home with them. They're not even getting stressed out at work. Those are the
Yeah.
kind of people that I always resonate most with in the workplace, because that to me is the biggest thing. Like, if you are so stressed out at a job that not only are you stressed out at the job, but you're bringing it home too. I mean, that's when you really run into problems. And I think that has been the case at times in my life with
Yeah.
when it comes to work life balance, especially like we were talking about the manufacturing jobs, the shift work and just the endless hours, and the hours being very mindless work too, mind numbing. They go by very slow, and then by the time you get off, you get home, and it's like a couple hours fly by, and it's time for bed, and
Yeah.
then you just got to do it all again the next day or whatever. And I think it was just jobs like that for me were very defeating, and it's really all I knew when I first started working. Was all I knew was like kind of bullshit part-time gigs or these shift work manufacturing jobs. And I think I with that for a good 10 years. Like, I kind of got to a point where I never thought I'd be happy with any job really. And it wasn't really until just this past few months where I made the leap into the career path I'm in now, where I kind of realized I had more options than I thought I had, but I kind of just defaulted back to what I was familiar with.
Yeah. So let's.
I feel like I got way off topic from what you asked me there.
No, no, that's okay because we're gonna be jumping around here because we don't really have a category that we're going off of. But speaking of like, dealing with a job that you're not happy with, there's a lot of mental health problems and depression that come with that. And my last job, I was there for 8 years. I never dealt with depression. It was one of those things when I was the hardest working guy in my area, which is fine because that's my team. And I always felt like I would do whatever I had to do for them. Like if they couldn't do the work because they
Right.
were sore or they were tired, I would do the work. It's no problem. That's my team. I
Yeah.
was looking to get upgraded to the supervisor, which I should have been. We'll get to that after though, but that was one of the main reasons I left. But speaking on mental health at a job or going through something like that, I went my at the end of my Goodwill term, I had developed severe germophobia, and I didn't know how long this fucking thing was gonna last in me. I didn't know, what it was coming to. But afterwards, when I got to my new job, it spiraled into an uncontrollable, I don't even know how to put it. It was just uncontrollable. Like it made everything so difficult for me. I couldn't touch another. I was scared to touch another tool someone was using. I couldn't wash my hands when people were using the sink at the same time. Like it was even hard for me to use the bathroom at some points because I would have to pee, but I was so fucked up in my head. Like I would have to wash my hands first before I pissed. So I would go in there, wash my hand, but in my head, I'm thinking my hands aren't clean. So I'd sit there for at least like 4 or 5 minutes, washing my hands like 3, 4, 5 times before mentally I was like, yeah, my head is good. Then I would take a piss. Like it was really a terrible time, like mentally that way. Like not depression, but just mentally that this disease that I got was just taking over me. Like it was so bad. Like if I was like a routine. Like I would wash my hands 3 times, but if someone else came into the bathroom, my routine was thrown off, and I'd have to do it again once they left.
Restart it. Yeah.
And I was trying to make every excuse for them to leave the bathroom because it's like, buddy, I've been holding my piss for like 6 minutes. Like, get the
Oh,
fuck out
fuck.
of here so I can do my routine. You know what I mean? But I got lucky that my house was only 15 minutes away, and the times I had to take a shit, like it was rare. It only happened like 3 or 4 times. I would just go to my supervisor, back. I'm sorry, bro. I gotta go home. And he'd be like,
Oh,
why?
wow.
I gotta go home. I'll be back in like an hour, and I would just leave. I wouldn't care if they fucking fired me or not, but I would just
Damn.
leave. Because I couldn't poop, and if I did that, dude, I would have a panic attack, right? And like,
Right.
there, there were so many clothes I threw away because I had my work gear, but if I was washing my hands and someone came in, they had a Band-Aid on, and they were washing because when you're in a manufacturer, it's just that big ass sink and everyone's
Yeah.
washing beside you.
Yeah. community sink.
mentally in my head, I would think the Band-Aid and the blood or whatever what got on my clothing. So the whole day I'd be stressing out in my work clothes, and at the end of the day, obviously I'd throw them in the bin to get washed. But the clothing I'd put on, I'd feel like it was contaminated too now, and
Right.
I threw out like so many outfits, buddy. Like I can go on and on about how fucked up
And that's
that
all a
germaphobe.
byproduct of a job too. Like that really shows people like how much that shit can affect you. Like that you
Yeah,
got that because the work you were doing. Basically, that's why that
yeah, and
developed.
that lasted for 8 years until I left the job, and what I worked, like I said, I worked with some great guys. I made some amazing friends, but it came down to like, I had met, my fiance, I know on here I call her my wife because basically we're married, we have 2 kids, fucking, but like, I had met her and I knew in my head it was time to change, like, my disease. Like I didn't know I was gonna beat it. I know like I would come home and my dad at the time be like, dude, like you need help. Like you're fucked up. You know what I mean? Because it would get worse at home, right? If like no one could touch the couch, if no one could touch the couch I sat on, no one could touch anything. If I were to eat, say wrestling was on, I wanted to eat a bag of chips. I'd have to, I'd wash my hands, open the bag of chips, get the bowl, pour it in the bowl, wash my hands again. Like it was just outrageous. Like everything just had to be, my hands had to be clean, and everything I touched had to be touched by clean hands. You know what I mean? And he was just like, dude, you need help. And then it was until like when I moved out with my wife. Like so, what had happened was I had some debt. So I had about what I would say like 8 grand credit card debt on 2 credit cards and a line of credit, and then I had my car. I had like I think 2,500 left on. So we were talking about moving in. I'm like, okay, I didn't want to do it, but I dropped all the money to pay it all off. So I was fresh, and
Right.
I was like, okay, I'm fresh. So we moved out, and then I was like, my dad's like, hey, you're gonna struggle if you're gonna be like this with this your problem, right? When you move out, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna be fine. And right away, that's when I kind of clicked in, and I had to change being having germophobia, and I don't know what happened. I can't tell anyone who's dealing with it how I changed. It's just one day in my mind, I'm like, it's gonna be okay, and you can do whatever you want, and that's what happened. So it changed my way, and then she
Now
got
you
pregnant.
now you don't wash your
Yeah,
hands even after you wipe your ass.
no, actually, I actually take shits at work now. I
There you
take shits
go.
at work now. So I took 2 shits yesterday at work. So
Yeah. And then you got to
I'm
just
still,
stop washing your hands after. Just take small
yeah,
steps.
that's it. I don't even wipe after. I just
Yeah.
fucking.
Just lick it
But
like a cat. Like a cat cleans itself.
so what had happened to me leaving my second job? Like I was there for 8 years. I used to go into management all the time. I'd be like, hey, make me the guy in that area. I'm the best. And they would be like, no, we can't make you the guy. Yeah, right now we already have this guy that's running both areas. I'm like, he can't run both areas. He's struggling running his own area. Just make me the guy. I'll stay with my pay. I don't care. I'll stay with my pay. Just give me the title that I deserve. Because they used to do walkarounds when they brought new employees around, and they'd be like, yo, anyone, if you need any question about the curtain area, Chris is the guy. He's the best. I'm the one coming in early. I'm the one doing all the work. I'm the one, finishing the job. I'm the one working full 10 hours without taking a break to get the job done for you guys. And, you guys are the ones going around saying everyone I'm the guy, but when it comes down to putting the title to the name, you won't do it. So
Yeah.
I was getting kind of rubbed off the wrong way, and it was coming to a time when I would start work at 6:30 in the morning, and I'd just go sit there before we did morning stretches, and they'd be, hey, Chris, how's it going? I'd be like, oh, we're almost done. And they're like, what are you talking about? We haven't even started yet. I'm like, yeah, man. We're almost done, because in my head, if I thought about that, I was going to be there.
Haven't started.
Yeah, if I thought I was going to be there for 10 hours, I would just, like, melt away, you know what I mean? And it became a time when I was just taking my lunch and my breaks as late as possible to make my day feel like it was gonna end quicker. So
Oh,
if my lunch,
I've been there.
if
Yeah.
yeah, if my lunch was at 12 and I was supposed to go, I would go at 2:30, and then
Yeah.
I'd get back at 3 and go, oh God, I only have an hour and a half left. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
exactly. You never
And
want to go for lunch and be like, I'm done. And then you look at the clock, you're like, fuck, I have 5 hours left.
yeah, and it came to the time like I was the fastest at doing everything. My quality was amazing. They knew I was a hard worker, and I talked to management, and then I even went to the owner of the company. I said, hey, I'm ready to be the guy there. I've been here for a long time, and I think I should get it. He's like, I like that in you. Whatever, some bullshit, you know. So I'm like, okay. So when my wife got pregnant, buddy, there was two things. I was so overjoyed because I was having my twins, and then I was also happy because I was going to be able to take some time off. And in Canada, it's different than from the States. We get to share our parental leave. So basically, the company gives the women 3 months, so that's maternity leave. But then in Canada, you also get 9 months extra that you can split with your partner or keep it. So basically, your wife can be off for a year, or however you can be off 6 months. You can be off 6 months.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, give me 3 months. And she's like, yeah, that's good. So I couldn't wait for the 3 months because I'm like, my kids are coming and I get to have a break from this fucking place. So when it was coming up to, almost due date time, and it was finally time. They were doing supervisor training for a the employers that they felt that was going to be ready for the role. So I'm like, okay, I'm a shoe-in, right? So they went and collected everybody, and look who they left off. They left me out of the supervisor training. So
Oh,
right away, buddy, I unbuttoned my shirt, fucking threw it on the desk, put my pants on, got changed, left the door. Um, my good buddy there I met, still my friend Jeremy. He's like, hey, where the fuck you going, man? Got in my fucking car, peeled out, done. I came back the next day and they're like, yo, what the fuck happened? I'm like, yo, you know what happened, Jeremy? You're in the fucking meetings. You're a supervisor. He's like, yeah, man. I was gonna tell you, but I didn't. I didn't want to like. I don't know how to come up to you and say, I don't know why they didn't choose you. We all told them to pick you, and for some reason they didn't. And I said,
damn.
okay, that's fine. So when I went on maternity finally, on parental, Um, right away, my wife's. I'm like, I'm not going back there. I'm done. And she's like, okay, well, you got to figure something out to do. And I was like, I'm gonna go to school part time. I know I love photography, so that was gonna be my thing. I was gonna go to school part time, go to photography, and I was gonna start my own photography gig. And then I would muster up the strength to go work there again after my leave was over. And they emailed me and they're like, hey, Chris, the supervisor position is available in your area if you want to put in your resume for it. So I was like, okay, this is the opportunity I was waiting for. Right? The position's open. The HR lady knows it's for me. She's going to put in the word for me. I know she likes me. So I wrote a nice letter, everything, sent it through, and I had a job interview for the supervisor position that was rightfully mine in the first place. And then I was sitting there, my wife's like, you're really going to go back there? And I was like, fuck, I don't want to go back there. And she's like, well, start applying. So I applied at other jobs, and it was for this gig that I'm at, a water facility that I'm at now. I was reading through the requirements. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get this job. I have no schooling, only went to high school. It's in a water main factory construction. So I put in my resume, and I ended up killing the job. So they're like, we want you to start on Monday. And I was like, no problem. And then my interview was on Monday at my old job for the supervisor position. So I had a decision to make, and the decision was easy. It was I didn't want to come back home to my family miserable every day. And whether or not I was going to get the position or not, I was still going to be miserable. So
Right.
I ended up going with the new job, and that's where I'm at now. And I know when I messaged the HR and said I'm not coming back, she was so angry. She's like, I thought you had a career with us. all this shit, and I was like, it's more than that. You guys fucked me over more than enough times, and
Yeah.
the stress isn't worth it. So I ended up getting my gig now. So I know it was a long fucking story. I was talking forever, but that was my that was how I got to the job I'm now. That I'm really happy. Obviously I get to work endless amount of overtime. I get weekly pay. I'm in the construction water field now, so obviously, I drive front end loader. I do machine operator. So I'm making a lot of good money now, plus overtime. So I can't be any happier. The only thing I would miss is the guys that I worked with. But once I left, a handful of those guys all left, and now it's like a broken place. I've talked to a lot of people. They can't keep anyone anymore. The work is, not what they're paying you. So I made the right decision.
Yeah, it's always
Just
good to
like you
find
were
out.
saying.
It's like when you find out that like your ex is like doing worse than you. It's like, okay, sweet. I made the right choice.
Well, that's it. But that job did teach me a lot. It did teach me hard work, how to be a leader, how to lead a team, and you can really use. I really can use some of that going forward in life lessons, right? So I can't knock it all, but the way they treated me as I was a supervisor, but they didn't want to be the title, was wrong, and I just couldn't go back to my family unhappy every day. So that's why I left, man. That was the main reason, and now I come home every day happy. The only thing hard now is that my kids are here, and it sucks not to be at home, and I miss a lot of things, right? So that's the
Yeah.
most difficult. That's the most difficult part about working now. But tell me about your story, and tell us about your story. Did you deal with any um, depression, any mental health from your job? What did you deal with? I know you don't have germophobia, but did you deal with something from your previous job, or
Yeah,
like?
I definitely struggle a lot with when I'm unhappy with the job. I struggle a lot with bringing it home with me. I when I'm miserable at a job, I feel like well, this is how I felt at least when I was working in my job before this. I was working in the retail industry. Um, I
Yeah,
just feel like when I'm unhappy at a job, when I'm off, it's almost like every hour, every second, it's like ticking away. Like I'm like, okay, I have 2 hours left. If I want to get a half hour of chilling, I need to make sure I have this done, and then if something else comes up, like my wife is like wants to do something else, I'm like, fuck no, that throws off all my plans. Like I find when I'm unhappy at work, it really just ripples out to the rest of my life, and yeah, coming to terms with that, it took me a long time to really realize like how much my work was making me unhappy because I was a young guy, I there was never any specific work that I was like attached to. I'm like, this is what I want to do when I grow up, and I know that this will be enough to satisfy me. So I always told myself like it's okay. It's just a job. You'll just get some job. You don't need to be like your whole heart doesn't have to be into it. Your whole life doesn't have to be about it. Just punch in, punch out. But it took me 10 years to realize like that was the wrong mentality. I was trying to act like I could just like toss away this time at work and it wouldn't affect the rest of my life. When in reality, it's like if you're not being satisfied at somewhere that you're spending 8 to 10 hours a day at, or even
yeah,
more, then it's going to affect the rest of your life. And I thought for years I convinced myself like, oh, if I change this, I'll be happier. Or I change this, I'll be happier. And I was really just in denial the whole time because I was too scared to take a leap in my career. I was just, I wouldn't even say I was comfortable with what I'd been used to for work, but it's just what I knew. And the unknown is what I found intimidating, and that's why it took me so long to get into the trade I'm in now. I just got into heating and air conditioning, and I mean, I went to school for it 10 years ago, got my license, and never got into the trade strictly out of intimidation. Just defaulted right back to factories, right back to retail, just to what I knew, even though I be enough to make me happy. But it was always myself, well, I'll be happy when I meet the girl. Then I met the girl and I still wasn't that happy. And I'm like, well, when I have
yeah.
when I move out with my parents, then I'll be happy. Then this job won't feel so shit. And I have my own place. I have the girl. Still not happy. And I realize like fuck, I need to do something about this. I need to get something more out of my work life than I've been getting. And that's why I like the trade I'm in
Yeah.
now.
No,
My current career
cutting
because
out a little. You're
every
cutting
day.
out. But there, you're back. You're back.
Oh,
It might just be the
uh,
area I'm in right now, right? But
yeah, I think so. Just a funky connection.
yeah,
But
so
yeah, like
say what you were backtrack like 20 seconds and say what you were saying again.
okay, yeah. So yeah, like mostly what was killing me about my old work is just the mindlessness of the work.
Yep.
And that's what I find focus, risk to me doing stuff wrong.
Yep.
That taking on that responsibility would also just make me feel so much more satisfied at the end of the day, and also just make my time at work go by much faster. Like I find when I was gonna ask you about it because you're as happy as you've ever been at your current job. And we talked about the Goodwill job, and that was one of the least happy experiences you had at an occupation. And then you talk about the differences in hours. You were working way, way more hours than you were at Goodwill, but you're still far more happy and far more satisfied with what you're doing now. I'm sure a lot of that is because you're being paid more fair, but I would assume that a good chunk is just because you find your work a lot more gratifying and rewarding.
Yeah. Well, with that, the, just backtracking on what you were saying, it sucks for guys like you and I, or a lot of other guys out there that are the heart and soul workers at a company. And it sucks when you kind of go to work and go, you know what? I'm not going to work as hard because that guy doesn't work as hard. But then deep down, your DNA isn't built like that, and you just have to do the work. It sucks
Right.
for like when you're built like that. Like I'm built like that. That like, I know that guy's a lazy fuck, and I'm not going to do anything. But fuck, I have to do it because I don't want to be known as that guy. So in my DNA, I just do the job, right? And I think,
Yeah, and
go ahead.
you can't really people won't let you get away with
No,
it either. Like once you set the precedence that you work to this
that's it.
level, that's what's expected of you. It doesn't matter if somebody's working down here there, people are like, what the fuck's wrong with Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Like there would be times at my old job when I just put on my earmuffs and just be working and not talking to anybody, and people would come up to me, yo, Chris, what's wrong today? Nothing, I'm just working. They're like, well, you're quiet today. You're like, what's wrong? You're not the cheerful, you know, Chris today. And it's like, no, I'm just working. You know what I mean? But I was trying to be a shit worker, but they caught on that I was working hard, right? So you just go back to working the way you were working. But like, I think
Right.
before I get into what you asked me, I think a lot of people stay, and I was at that point too. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't afford to leave with the debt I had. And I think that's a
Yeah.
lot of thing that people struggle with. And it's different here in Canada than in the States because a lot of people don't get insurance. And most times when you get a job here, we have benefits, right? That's like
Yeah.
we'll pay you $16 an hour, but you're gonna get a benefit package, right, for your minimum wage job in Canada. But in the States, a lot of those people do not get benefits, and when they do, and they're miserable at the job, they have to stay because you have kids, and they don't get free health care like we do. So a lot of them struggle with that. But the big struggle with me was the debt, and I had the funds to pay it off, but it sucks to see 10 grand out of your account go on to these debts that I don't even remember what the fuck I bought on them. Right, like that was when,
Right.
like I said, I was with my ex, and it was just double payments, and we were always going out and having fun, and I didn't make the money, so I just put it on my credit cards, buying the best Christmas gifts, spoiling, and you know what I mean. You did the same thing.
Future crazy about this.
Yeah, like and I'd buy the fucking this, that, and I'd be like, oh, I pay it off next paycheck, and you never end up paying it off. But yeah, what was your question? Why am I happier at my new job versus working
Yeah,
more hours?
what like you're working more hours, you got a longer commute. Um, Other than pay, what is it that makes it so this job is so much more satisfying? What is it
Yeah,
that is different from what made you unhappy at the other job? Like,
the physicality. When I was at my old job, when you're a guy that works so hard, and you go, man, I wish I had that job where I don't have to work hard, but I get paid better. And now I have
right.
that job, right? Like I don't have to work hard. Like I was 140 ripped and in good shape when I went to that job. Now I'm 180 fat. Like, cause I don't do any. Like, no, for real
And
though.
you're
I don't.
happy to be so.
Yeah, like I don't do anything because that's happy fat. Before
Yeah,
was
yeah,
before was slave fat. Yeah, slave
yeah,
body. You know what I
exactly.
mean? That's
Yeah.
how hard I was working. I could eat whatever I wanted, but I would stay around that 138, 140. And once I left that place and got a job where I didn't have to work as hard, I'm not working as hard. Some days I just sit on my ass for fucking 6 hours a day for the 6 hours out of my day. Some days I'm just in a front end loader all day, and I gain 40 pounds. But like
Right.
I'm happy. Obviously, like I'm not happy when I take off my shirt and I see a gut because I never seen one before.
You're a
But
dad.
like,
You're supposed to have a dad bod.
yeah, that's what I call it now. I got a dad bod, but yeah, I'm happy. I get to work a lot of hours, and obviously I get paid weekly. So when you're bringing home, you know, a good paycheck. I don't want to say what I get paid online, but when you're bringing home
Yeah.
a good paycheck every week, it feels good, man. And why I love it too, I only work with four guys. It's me and four other guys there. You know what I mean? So total five of us. We all used to get along. it's We're all kind of getting there now, but for the most part, we all get along, and there's only the one guy I think everyone kind of has an issue with, but other than that, everyone gets along. I've been to Raptors games with these guys. We've been to wrestling with some of
Yeah,
them.
wrestling. Yep.
Um, it's a great brotherhood. We go out and buy lunch every Thursday. So it makes going to work easy. Like, I used to wake up every morning and be like, oh fuck, I gotta go to work. And now I wake up, I'm like, oh, I gotta go to work. I know I got an hour and a half commute. I know I gotta wake up. I
Yeah.
start work at 6. I know I gotta leave at 4 something. But it don't bug me because I'm like, I'm not miserable going to work. Like, it would be
Yeah.
at the time I would be going to work, and like I still do it now. It's
Oh,
my routine. I would I would be blasting music. Oh, oh, you cut out. You froze. Are you there? Uh-oh. But let me keep going. He froze. I don't know if he can hear me. Hopefully he can hear me. Uh-oh. But like I was saying, guys, I'd be driving to my old job, and it was my routine that I would just constantly blast music. So I'd be listening to music, and it would be a crossroad. So I'd get down this hill, and there was a left to go to my job and a right. And some days when I was just listening to music, the sun was shining, the weather was nice. I would just be like, "Motherfucker, I'm taking a right," and I would just miss work because I just didn't want to deal with the stress. But now I don't have that. I go to work happy, never stressed. Um, oh, he left. He left. Let me see if I can get him back in here. Let me see if I can get him back in here. Um, uh-oh. Work-life balance. Dan is gone. He should be back. He probably got cut off there, and then get back to my story here. But yeah, man. There's nothing better than wake up in the morning and just enjoying your drive to work. That's the one thing I enjoy. Driving to work and being happy about it, man. Whether or not your routine, you wake up, you make a coffee, you make a bagel, you eat cereal, and you're just happy that to get to work. That's the main point, right? Is be happy when you're with your workplace. And um, if you're not happy, you have to change it somehow. And I know it's difficult with. Uh-oh, I don't know what's going on here. We lost Dan. We lost Dan. Fuck. I'm even driving too, so it's even harder for me to figure this out when I'm driving here. Uh-oh. Oh, let me see what I can do here. The fucking. We lost Dan, guys. We're trying to get. Keep sending him the link. The guest left. So give him a couple minutes. If not, then I'll kind of wrap it up. But the episode I felt was doing all right. Um, I'm almost at home, so it must have been almost an hour soon of the episode. But yeah, for anyone out there that's you know going through a struggle at work, I know the struggle, man. I know the struggle of going in your bank account and you got to fill up gas and you only got $2 in there. I know the struggle of when you're hungry for lunch, but you got no money to buy lunch, and um, you got to starve for your 8 to 10 hour shift. I know the struggle when you get paid, left with nothing. That struggle, I've been there. Um, you know, it's tough to leave a job that you've been at forever. I was almost at my last job for a decade, and I made the sacrifice that, one of the times where usually people don't make a sacrifice like that. I was I had newly born twin boys, and I took the chance and left the job that I had 5 weeks holiday. I had still live on the previous, or is that like the 16th live stream that we started? But like I was saying, guys, if this is the original, sorry. Dan's phone just died. He just called me on his phone and it died again. So yeah, so back to it. I know the struggle, guys. Like I said, I quit my job at a weird place in my life. I had my twin boys. They were here. Um, obviously, we had rent and everything. I could basically do whatever I wanted, and I got fired at my old job. I didn't have that supervisor position that I wanted to. That they dangled in front of me that made me work harder, and they just used me. But I had seniority there, right? And I decided to leave. And look, right now, it worked out. the only miserable part of my job is being away from my family. And I know um, all the fathers out there, all the mothers who are who work, understand that it sucks to be away from your children, especially at a young age like that, where they're so vulnerable, and you want to be there to protect them, and you want to be there to hug them and talk to them, and watch them play, and when they smile at you, and um, those are the wonderful things that you miss when you work in long, long hours. And I can't just say that. My wife works too. She works full time, and I commend her, man. She's a superhero, and she's amazing. She works um, 8 hours with children, and then she'll come home with my children, our children, and take care of them, feed them, bath them, put them to bed, and then she'll finally, go take a shower. And by the time she's resting in bed, I'm coming home at like 9, 10, 11 o'clock after 13, 14, 15, sometimes 16-hour shift, and she's a super mom, man, and I can only be so appreciative. So, she works, like, again, she works full time, and then when she gets home, it's full time again. So, I'm a lucky son of a bitch, man. And for any of you guys out there, you know, uh, sometimes you just make that sacrifice, and sometimes it pays off. If you're unhappy at your job, um, it's worth it to try to look for a new one, because the grass, it's not always, but it's greener on the other side. And I hope you guys, I know this was a broken podcast, fucking been all over the place, talking a bunch of shit. But for real, man, if you're out there and you're unhappy at your workplace, you know, um, you gotta make yourself happy, man. You gotta make yourself happy. And sometimes, like Dan said, having a wife, having a girlfriend, having a place to come home to every day is not enough to, bring home happiness after your shift at work. And sometimes you just need to change it up and take a leap of faith. And I was never a leap of faith guy until, my kids were born. And I said, you know what, Chris, it's time to take that leap of faith. And it panned out. So anyone out there, guys, I hope it pans out for you guys if you guys make that leap of faith. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. For anyone out there, I hope it works out. My main thing I can tell anyone, with more money comes more problems. So make sure, if you're making more money, still keep those credit cards low. You don't need a 50, 60, $70,000 car loan. Just make sure you do things that are smart, that getting that new job doesn't put you back in that same place that your old job had you in. So guys, like always, thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe. I know this was kind of a throwaway episode. I don't even know what's going on at this point anymore, because Dan's gone. The stream had started like 8 or 9 times. Um, Check out our Instagram pages. We always have fun content out there, with music. Dan does a lot of great comic and sports things. We have a versus series. So guys, like always, this is Chris from the Boyz podcast.